Well, of course, that same legislature has declared that even for a fine-only offense, it's appropriate to take a citizen into custody. The thing that the Atwaters don't fully appreciate here is that whatever rule the court lays down will not just apply in their case, will apply in all 50 states for all traffic offenses. We would suggest that to take away the officer's discretion for situations that we all unanimously can agree require custodial arrest, like drunk driving, would be a rule that should not be followed and would be a significant departure from the United States Constitution and the teachings of the High Court.
Okay, but I think you'll allow, drunk driving is a long way removed from not having a seatbelt buckled going 15 miles an hour.
Even the rule we propose does allow for an arrest in a drunk driving situation.
All right. I'm going to have to let that be the last word. Gail Atwater, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Andy Taylor and Pamela McGraw, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's 8:14. Mark, what do you got?
Inside. I'm warm.
Supreme Court justices have more than the presidential elections on their hands this week. Today, justices begin hearing a case involving a Lago Vista mother who was arrested and jailed for not buckling up herself or her children 3 years ago. Now, this is a case that could set a precedent all across the country. KI's Yolanda Hawkins joins us with more on the impact this case could have on all of us. Yolanda?
Well, Christy, the case speaks to the arrest powers of police and when those powers conflict with a person's Fourth Amendment right, prohibiting unreasonable search and seizure. Whatever the outcome, the Lago Vista case will likely be a case lawyers will reference in the courtroom for years to come.
It's an experience some of us remember or would like to totally forget.
You're doing 72 miles an hour, you're in a 55 work zone here.
The ability to arrest and search someone for not wearing a seatbelt is another matter before the U.S. Supreme Court.
For me, driving without a seatbelt is a serious deal. We work a lot of accidents out here where we have a lot of people that if it would have been wearing a seatbelt, they'd have lived through it. Especially kids.
Gail Atwater says she knows she broke the law 3 years ago, but going to jail was a bit much.
It's not reasonable to take somebody to jail for a traffic violation.
Craig Gippentrog has an interest in this case. It's a case that could affect his day on the job and could handcuff officers from enforcing the law.
From what I've heard in other states, that stuff like this has caused officers to not do their job to the fullest extent. You know, they tend to pass by that vehicle that was speeding or pass by that vehicle that ran through the stop sign.
But UT Professor Douglas Laycock says the state seatbelt law conflicts with arrest powers, and some clarity is needed.
A 3-hour jail sentence on top of a $50 fine as a maximum is an abuse of the officer's power, and this would deter that and provide a remedy for the few people it happens to.
If the court rules in Atwater's favor, he says there's still one group of people who still stand to lose the most.
Here it happened to a middle-class white woman married to a doctor, but disproportionately, it's going to happen more often to poor people, minorities, folks that have more troubles with the system.
A system now before the highest court in the land that began as a traffic stop in Central Texas.
The officer who actually worked the Atwater traffic stop currently works for Williamson County Sheriff's Department. Bart Torek is a training officer there. Supreme Court justices will likely come to some sort of decision sometime in July. Reporting live, Yolanda Hawkins, KI News.
Some other news, a big non-election case before the U.S. Supreme Court today, a case that potentially could impact every driver in America. It involves a Texas woman who was arrested, handcuffed, and locked in a jail cell because she and her children were not wearing seat belts. She says they were driving slowly down a quiet road when they were pulled over by an overzealous officer, but Texas officials stand by the arrest, saying the officer acted properly.
Standard operating procedure when a decision is made for a custodial detention to occur is you must actually handcuff the individual, because otherwise they have ready access to weapons. Your other choice, though, is to actually do a pat-down search of the suspect. We would submit that it was more reasonable to handcuff Ms. Atwater rather than, given the fact this officer was a male and this suspect was a female, to conduct a very intrusive body search on her at that time.
The children were really at no risk. We were 15 miles an hour. They could have walked beside the truck as fast as they were. Officer Turek didn't present this issue that he cared about my children until the last couple months. If he cared about my children, he would have allowed me to remove my children from that scene. But instead, he chose to keep them there until a friend came and took them away.
At the heart of this case, the Fourth Amendment, which bans unreasonable arrests and searches.
Another case with local ties goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it could affect every driver in the country. A Lago Vista mother has taken her fight about seatbelts to the nation's highest court. Gail Atwater is arguing that she should not have been dragged off to jail for failing to buckle herself and her children.
Children were really at no risk. We were 15 miles an hour. They could have walked beside the truck as fast as they were.
We would have much preferred that this never happened, but standard operating procedure when a decision is made for a custodial detention to occur is you must actually handcuff the individual.
Members of the Supreme Court say they took the Lago Vista case simply because it sparked their interest. KVUE 24's Amanda Lawson joins us now live in Lago Vista with some neighborhood reaction. Amanda?
Well, Judy, it's amazing to think what started here at the Lago Vista City Hall nearly 4 years ago has reached all the way to the highest court in our land. We talked with people in this area, and they certainly have their opinions on this case and are anxiously awaiting the Supreme Court's decision. This mostly undeveloped community is tucked away between massive rolling hills. It's known for its beauty and down-home charm. That's what brought Karen Hollingsworth and her husband out here 10 years ago. Like most folks around town, they've kept up with the case that's landed their small town in the Supreme Court.
Some feel that the police did do things they shouldn't do. Some feel that they did what they should have done.
Local headlines scream out the latest on this case's legal road to the Supreme Court, but some tell us they base their opinion more on emotions than the law.
Put your seatbelts on. Having small kids, I know how hard it is to keep them under control all the time, and there's just always extenuating circumstances.
It's unreasonable to take a woman down to the station, handcuff her, book her, and subject her to the mugging process.
I mean, there's people out there doing a lot worse crimes than not wearing a seatbelt.
Most around town are pulling for Atwater, some even citing their own run-ins with the police as reasons why they've become leery of the department. But the Hollingsworth, they will continue to back the blue, regardless of what the Supreme Court decides.
Personally, I'm very proud of them. I don't think they do. They're human. I'm sure there's going to be an error here and there, but I don't feel like there was one at this point.
Although the Supreme Court did hear this case today, it may be a while before residents actually know the outcome. In fact, it could be as far away as July. Reporting live from Lago Vista, Amanda Lawson, KVUE 24 News.
Amanda, what about the city leaders there in Lago Vista or the police department? Have they mentioned anything about the case today?
Yes, we did talk with Police Chief Frank Miller today. He tells us that the officer that was involved in this arrest has since left the force. He went on his own free will for a better job opportunity. He said that officer had no problems with his background, no abusive incidents before this or after this, and that he fully supports him and his actions, and didn't see any need for a policy change with the department, that this officer was just doing his job. Judy?
Interesting case, thank you. In court here at home,
see Fox 7 Austin. This is Fox 7 News at 5.
It's a ruling that could affect nearly everyone. The U.S. Supreme Court says police can handcuff and arrest someone even for a minor offense. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. This case stems from a Lago Vista woman's arrest while with her children for not wearing a seatbelt.
The nation's highest court ruled 5-4 that she was not mistreated and cannot sue the Lago Vista Police Department. Fox 7's Jeff Napkin is on I-35 with more. Jeff?
Dick, this is a pretty big ruling, which could affect nearly everybody who drives a car. Gail Atwater and her family were surprised to learn that they lost in court this morning. We had a chance to speak with them at their home in Lago Vista today, and believe me, they had a lot to say.
We lost the Supreme Court case. I just heard over the radio. Yeah.
Word spread quickly after the Supreme Court ruling. By a single vote, Gail Atwater lost her case.
I always prayed that it wouldn't be this close. I wanted one side or the other to have a big margin.
We're very disappointed that we lost today, not only for ourselves, but for everybody else's civil rights.
Under the ruling, police can arrest you for even a minor offense without violating your constitutional rights. That decision and its possible effect worries Atwater.
It just gives bad cops the carte blanche to do this anytime they feel like it. But good cops will continue to be good cops.
4 years ago, she was driving with her kids when a Lago Vista officer pulled them over. He arrested Atwater and took her to jail. The crime, not wearing a seatbelt. But city leaders supported the police department then and now feel vindicated by the court's decision.
I'm very pleased that it's all over. I'm satisfied, very satisfied with the decision that was made.
However, many local residents support the family and believe they showed bravery and courage.
I appreciate them and applaud them for standing up for those rights because they're my rights too.
Despite the loss, you still have a lot of respect for them.
Oh, absolutely. More so.
As for Gail Atwater and her husband, they're ready to move on, but admit their lives have changed forever.
It just made me more cynical, especially after today.
4 years ago, I thought that we were lucky to be born in America. Now I understand that it's not about luck. It's about people's commitment and courage.
The family says that they are proud of their effort, but are also worried about the possible message this could send to police, to the public, and to their own children. Reporting live above I-35, I'm Jeff Napkin, Fox 7 News.
Will this ruling change the way police or the public conduct themselves during traffic stops? That seems to be the question. Fox 7's Diane Quest is downtown with some answers. Diane?
Yeah, April, for the most part, people seem to think that when they are inside their car, whether they're not wearing their seatbelt or whether they just run a stop sign, that they should get maybe for those minor violations a ticket, or sometimes people think just a warning. But nobody we talk to seems to think that they should be arrested for any of those things. But even before the Supreme Court ruling today, Texas law gave law enforcement officers every right to arrest on minor traffic violations with the exception of speeding. The Supreme Court ruling just reinforces that. So for all of you drivers out there, nothing has changed as far as the law is concerned. Perhaps you're just more aware of it now. Here's how it works. Each police department in the state has its own policies tailored to follow that law. And here in Austin, those policies allow for officer discretion.
I think, again, the policies follow the law. They basically, tell you when you can and cannot make an arrest. And I think, again, with Austin, our policies are geared toward, first, achieving voluntary compliance, and second, to make sure that the laws are followed.
Here's something that may make all of this a little bit easier to take. There is legislation that has almost made it through the House that would restrict an officer's right to arrest someone on such violations. And secondly, members of the state's biggest law enforcement union say generally police officers don't arrest you for those minor traffic violations, that there are other circumstances that come into play. And we'll have more on that tonight on Fox 7 News at 9. Live downtown, Diane Quest, Fox 7 News.
This is KI, your eye on Austin.
The United States Supreme Court today agreed Central Texan Gail Atwater was humiliated, but the court ruled it was okay to handcuff her and arrest her for not wearing a seatbelt. Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us on KI News at 5. I'm Neil Spells.
And I'm Seal Spells. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled you can be arrested if you're not wearing a seatbelt. And the decision came today out of a case that started
right here in Central Texas. A Lago Vista mom was arrested for not buckling herself up or her children. KI's Yolanda Hawkins has more on the case that now sets a precedent all across the nation.
What happened one day in this small Central Texas town 3 years ago changed Gail